Hey there, folks. So we're going to continue with author diaries. In this one, I'm going to answer sort of the broad question, how much do I plan when I write fiction? So this will be my first completed novel, but it won't be the first piece of fiction I've ever written. It won't even be the first piece of fiction I've published. I have my play that I published last year, but I've also written short stories, none of which have gotten published. I've written short plays, one of which got accepted into a festival a few years ago. When I go in, how much do I plan? Do I outline? Do I bullet point and figure out the whole thing before I start actually writing the story proper? Well, I plan insofar as I've never finished a story that I didn't know how I was going to end it. And most of the stories that I haven't finished or have more accurately flat out abandoned and don't think I am going to finish are ones where I don't know how they end. I have on occasion started a few stories where I didn't know how it was going to end, and every time I've done that, I've lost steam because I don't have direction on it. But when I know how it's going to end, I don't need to diagram it out and to outline it in great detail. But I do need to know where I'm going. And for me, at least, different authors approach this in different ways. And I have friends who are writers who take I'll come up with the characters and the scenario, but I'll let the characters decide where the story goes. I have encountered people who write that way, and more power to them. For me, it doesn't work, because if the characters are dictating the story, eventually I feel like I don't have agency in the story that I'm trying to tell. Now, does that mean that I don't allow for organic shifts because of characters or situations going in directions I maybe hadn't originally planned? No, I tend to have a fair amount of freedom, but because I keep my eye on where I know the final destination is going to be, I'll still nudge things where I need them to. Nudge the characters, nudge the situation to be sure that it still gets me to the destination that I am after. I try very hard not to reverse engineer, not to go from, okay, that's the ending. How do I get there specifically? It's slightly more meandering than that. Again, it's because I don't outline in detail. Generally, I need to know my ending, but I'll also know, what are the major beats I want to be sure I hit. So in the case of the book that I am working on getting published, still called Dreams of Fire as of this recording, I always knew how it was going to end. I always knew that the climax was going to basically take place in two parts, with basically an extended action scene that encompasses much of one of the primary settings of the story, but then following that, in the aftermath of that, a confrontation between two characters. And I always knew which two characters. I always knew what the nature of that dynamic was going to be. And I always knew how that was going to end. And that was really important for me, because when I say that I do have my ending plan out, I don't just mean and the good guys win the end. I mean no, I have a specific scene as to how I am going to end this. And that was true of the play I wrote too. One of the first things I had figured out was how that was going to end. And that was also one of the first things I had figured out for this book. Generally, when I sit down and start working on things that might eventually turn into finished pieces, I jump around to the things that I know I need in place and also that hold the most interest for me. And usually that means dialogue scenes, because I feel most comfortable writing dialogue, much more so than really anything else, which is actually part of one of the aspects of the revision I'm currently working on, is trying to shift further away from narration and work more of the information into dialogue exchanges, because honestly, I think I'm just flat out better at that. But in any case, I'll come up with like the major beats that I want to hit. All right, when these characters get together, I want them to have this conversation. Ooh, I want to have this conflict happen. Oh, here's this thing that's going to happen, and ultimately ending at X. So actually, if you've ever seen me perform burlesque, which most of you probably haven't, there are videos up in various places on YouTube if you feel like sniffing around for them. Just search for Vera Wild or go to the YouTube channel Drags and Dolls. You'll see several there. But I kind of write similar to how I choreograph, which is to say loosely but with intent, because I'm not a trained dancer. So I don't choreograph very tightly. I don't have all these specific move sets. What I have instead is I have specific beats that I know I want to hit at specific points in the song, usually corresponding with, you know, either the chorus kicking in, or if there is a key change, or if there is a beat drop, depending on the kind of music that I'm working to. Very specific things happening at very specific moments. And so I'll know those. I'll know, like, here's my A, here's my C, here's my E. No, here's my A, here's my C. Yeah, here's my E. I know my alphabet. And I'll know I want to hit those on, but what B is going to look like, or what D is going to look like, and how I'm going to actually connect the points that I know for certain I want, I don't always plan that out, and I kind of feel it out. And that's very similar to how I write. I know, okay, I know I'm starting here, and I want to get here, and then I want to get here, and here, and here. Well, how do I get from here to here to here? Well, let's just start writing and figure out how I get from there to there to there to there. So, for me, I do need to have at least one eye on a destination, because otherwise the narrative will get away from me, and not in a way that's like, oh, I'm discovering a story, in a way that's like, I don't know what is going on here, and then I lose motivation. That can be energizing for some writers, the sort of discovery of the plot, of you know, finding out what these characters will do. Some writers can work like that and can get energized by that. I lose steam if I feel like I'm not certain that this is going anywhere. And I have had times where I have had to tweak the ending, because I've realized that, you know what, this narrative did want to go its own direction, but I still forced it to go where I was trying. That's only happened like once, though. And that was in a short story. By and large, I've stuck to the ending that I've had in mind, because I've always been nudging the plot all the way through in order to get there. Some authors will tell you that you need to very strictly outline everything. I don't. And actually, I'm not even sure I could. My brain doesn't really work that way. It doesn't organize in that fashion. But I know the major beats I'm going to hit, and I'm just going to wing it my way through each of those. So that's my own personal general approach to how much planning do I do in advance, sitting down to write something like Dreams of Fire. So that's it for this particular diary, folks. Another one up in 2 weeks. Hope you're finding these interesting, and as my grandfather used to say, keep smiling.